and they lose to Edmonton last night, 4-0. That's 4 or 5 losses in a row. 5 losses in a row. Am I right in that? And it just looks as bad as it has all year. And I get it. Edmonton's a really good team. Obviously, in fact, the whole hype of this game was come see the best player in the world playing at your barn, and Leon Draisaitl, pretty good too, right? Like, this is a team that went to the finals last year. And in fact, Connor McDavid has not scored since that game tire against the Bruins in Edmonton a couple weeks ago. It's about a week before Christmas. And it was such a poor performance last night again. And they fall down 1-0, and then they kind of wake up. This is the latter half of the first period. The Bruins put in a charge. I remember it was 4-1 in shots by the time Edmonton went up 1-0. Bruins get it back to 4-4. They have a couple good shifts in a row. And then the next thing I look, it's 10-4 in shots. And it just continues to get worse throughout the game. It's only 1-0 at the end of the first, but the Bruins weren't really competitive. And then it's here we go again, business as usual. It's 3-0 at the end of the third, or excuse me, the end of the second. 4-0 at the end of the game. It's just brutal. It's brutal right now. The Bruins are just a mess of a team. They are in the bottom quarter of the league. So the bottom 8 of the league, and these numbers have improved the last 2 games, by the way. Bottom 8 of the league in power play, penalty kill, goals against, goals for. Okay? They are a minus 24 on the year. A minus 24. And again, Tampa and Ottawa right behind them. Tampa's only a point behind them. You got them next on Thursday. Ottawa's 4 points behind them. But Tampa has 5 games in hand, and Ottawa's got 4. And their goal differential, if you're interested in that kind of thing, Ottawa has made it up to an even 0. Tampa, the team right behind you with 5 games in hand and only 1 point behind, is a plus 33. Think about that. They are 57 goals better than you at a plus 33. There's no world, there's no optic, there's no way you watch this team and say, yes, they deserve to be in the playoffs. And there's no way you can watch this team and say, boy, I hope they make the playoffs. That's going to benefit the franchise. It's just you're running into a black hole. Like you're running into nothing. There's no hope for this team, and there's no real hope for the short-term future of this team and this franchise. Because again, we were all entertained to the gills by the World Junior Championships. It was an awesome event. I ranted and raved about it on Monday's show, talking about how the skill there is just off the charts. It's so fun to watch. And then you sit back and think, boy, there is one NHL team that does not have a single prospect at this tournament. And it's the Boston Bruins. I mean, it's the friggin' team, the U.S. team that wins gold back-to-back is basically a Boston travel team. They're all from the Boston area. They all play at BU or BC, and somehow the Bruins don't have a stake in any of it. None of them are their prospects. And it's not because they're getting picked in the top 5. All right? Cole Eiserman's picked like 20th to the Islanders. You have all these opportunities to scout these guys more than anybody else. And what the hell is Don Sweeney doing? He's either trading the first-round picks, right? Or he's drafting stiffs like Johnny Beecher from Michigan. Boy, how's that working out for you? Even one of my guys. I'm a big Mason Lowry guy, Ohio State. And he has been in an absolute tailspin the last month here. He's been horrible. Horrible. -3 last night. Now, he's a young kid. I really do think he has a bright future, but it's a tough watch right now. And I feel really bad for Joe Sacco, too, because it's probably his last shot to be a head coach in the NHL. And, I mean, what do you have to work with? He seems like a really good assistant coach and a good guy. Everyone raves about him, loves this organization. He's a local guy, and he's going to be gone after this year because he's thrown into the fire with this just dog shit team. Dog shit team. And I'm glad the fans are starting to let the team know how they feel, but I don't know if the noise is loud enough. But not only did the Bruins get booed off the ice last night once again for losing 5 in a row, but these chants start breaking out in the third period. I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect? Yes, fire Sweeney. Most of us have been on that train from the beginning of this season. Because, like, oh, you got Big Bad Monty out of the room. I think that was a good thing. The Bruins needed a change, and we don't know what Montgomery's style was. But I said it from the beginning. Montgomery is not the biggest problem here, not by a long shot. The biggest problem is the roster, which therefore the biggest problem is Don Sweeney. And even the biggest problem at the time with Montgomery was there was a clear divide between the head coach and the front office, the GM. Because not only did they were on two different planes in terms of what style they wanted the Bruins to play. Like, that was pretty obvious. Montgomery loves a speed team that does win in the NHL these days. And the Bruins, Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, wanted grit. They wanted tough. They wanted big. And so they went out and they got Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm, a good defensive center, but not a center number one. And they paid him to be center number one. And they like Zadorov because he makes big hits. And it's a complete failure. This team is a failure. That free agency window is a complete failure. And I've had this thought in my head since the end of free agency. And I'm not going to revisionist history this. I didn't mind the signings at the time. I didn't love them, but I was like, okay, I'm here for, maybe you look at that Florida series and you say they do need to get a little tougher. I would say there's like 10 other things you could look at in that Florida series and say, well, they also need to improve this. They need some more team speed. They need to put shots on the friggin' net. They need to have some secondary scoring or some primary scoring in that series. And they need some guys who can handle the puck at the back end. I would have said all of those things were more important. But hey, Florida's got a grit to them that you don't. But even after this free agency window, I sat here and I thought, did the Bruins actually get better? Did they become a better team? And even at the time, I was like, I don't know. I don't know that they did. And certainly now, probably a month into the season, actually, you could have looked at it and said, no way. They did not become a better team. And last year's team fooled us. It's almost like you got career years out of Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, Danton Heinen, Pavel Zacha, and maybe Jeremy Swayman. It's almost like that happened. And this year, the guys who do have back are not having career years. They have reverted back to the mean. They have reverted back to what they are. And what you have is a dog shit roster, a dog shit lineup that you're putting out there every night. And apparently Elias Lindholm is supposed to help ease some pressure, take some pressure off David Pastrnak. Boy, what a win that was. So let's look at the two free agencies that Don Sweeney has handled. Okay? It has yielded you the late Jimmy Hayes, David Backes, Matt Bolesky, Zach Rinaldo, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Jeremy Swayman. That's what it's yielded you. That's fucking awful. Like the guy, you don't trust him with free agency. You don't trust him with the draft. The only thing he has kind of done well are free agency, not free agency. The only things he has kind of done well are trade deadline deals. And even then, you did it year after year after year. You mortgaged your future. And at the end of the day, it didn't work. You made it to the final once. You made it to the conference final once. And you traded all these draft picks. And now what? You've got the 32nd ranked farm system in the NHL, and you've got no prospects playing at the World Juniors. This guy has set them back years, if not a decade. And of course you should be saying fire Sweeney. You should have been saying fire Sweeney at the beginning of the season. And instead you're like, nope, Montgomery's the bad guy. We'll be okay. We'll bring in Sacco, who just didn't have a chance. Like really, didn't have a chance. And you thought you could sneak into the playoffs. It's not happening. You're not getting into the playoffs. I mean, it's just a matter of time before Ottawa and Tampa go and surpass you. I mean, it's just, it's really too bad, man, because I thought the Bruins had a shot this year to improve the roster or at least run it back with enough talent to be a postseason team that could actually make some noise. Because right now, the best case scenario, they can sneak in as the 4. They're not going to make any noise. And they're going to be in the worst spot possible, really, is they're going to be just on the outside looking in. And that is just the worst. Just the worst. Because what are you going to get out of that? You're not going to rebuild your team through the draft. You're certainly not going to do it with Don Sweeney. Who's Don Sweeney drafted? Johnny Beecher? That's it? Like, that's all you got? He didn't draft Pasternak. You didn't get the steal of Pasternak. It's just, McAvoy is who he's drafted. Swayman, sure. Oh, that's not looking that great right now as your franchise goalie. Other than that, he doesn't get anything right. And yet he just gets a pass. And it's not been like his tenure with the Bruins has not been complete dog shit because they've won and they've re-signed key guys. And like there is something to be said for that. But you look at when this thing was starting to go south and when this team was starting to age out, what has Don Sweeney done for you? Name one move that made your team better in the long term. And that's not to take some of the blame from these players because there's, look, 5 in a row is 5 in a row. All right? Like that's a product on the ice. And I do have big questions about leadership. I love Marchand. He's one of my all-time favorite Bruins. He's a -5 now. He's never had a full season where he's been a minus player. It's probably going to happen this year. And there's no one incident I can point to. It's like he's being a bad captain, but there's clearly a leadership issue. And it's him, and it's McAvoy, and it's Pasternak. And so, okay, you usher Marchand out the door. Maybe you throw him a bone like you did with Ray Bourque, and you trade him at the deadline, give him a chance to win a Stanley Cup. But then what? Like, then who's your captain? And I don't even know what the hype is around this draft coming up. It's about 26 when you can get Gavin McKenna. I don't know who the top prospects are in this draft, and you're not going to be in it because you decided to not suck. You just sucked a lot, not the most. Okay? You should have done what Chicago's doing and just tanked this thing. And instead, we're just going to watch mediocre hockey, and there's going to be a point in a couple of weeks where they win 3 or 4 in a row or 6 out of 7, and you're like, maybe I'm going to be something. I'm going to be the dipshit on here saying, well, maybe they've got the structure and they figured this out and they can play the defense in the playoffs. It's necessary. They're fucking not. They're not. And the talent gap is just humongous, man. They don't have the talent.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.